Despite the overwhelming odds, in 1831, the slave owner's worst nightmare came true. A slave named Nat Turner led a rebellion that rampaged through Southampton County, Virginia for 2 days before whites managed to put it down.
I heard a loud noise in the heavens, and the Spirit instantly appeared to me and said the serpent was loosened. I should arise and prepare myself and slay my enemies with their own weapons.
Nat is a complicated figure, literate, somewhat a charismatic figure, this Methodist exhorter, someone who studied the Bible, someone who believed in portents, believed that he was a prophet, that his responsibility was to lead this attack.
With a small group of co-conspirators, Nat Turner's rebellion began with the killing of his own master and mistress.
Armed with a hatchet, I entered my master's chamber. It being dark, I could not give a death blow. The hatchet glanced off his head. He sprang from the bed and called his wife. It was his last word.
From there, the slaves moved on to neighboring plantations, killing men, women, and children, and gathering new slaves and weapons at each stop. By the time the rebellion was put down, some 60 white people were dead. But that number paled in comparison to the number of blacks murdered by whites in the aftermath of Nat Turner's rebellion.
I think there was always this fear of mass slave rebellion, and we see this in the way that slaveholders react to any suggestion of slave insurrection. They react mercilessly.
The news of that rebellion spread throughout the South, and legislatures from Louisiana to Virginia harshened already harsh slave laws. They cracked down on slaves and on free blacks throughout the South.
Because Nat Turner was a literate Christian, a member of the church, a preacher, rules were changed about black worship, about slave worship. It forced the white communities to dust off rules and regulations about slave literacy. And we find that white society comes down very hard on slaves being able to read.
Perhaps the most profound way in which Nat Turner's rebellion affects American life is the way, of course, that news of that rebellion moves through the slave quarter, and how Nat becomes an extraordinary figure within slave life, a figure of a person who does what perhaps many people would like to see done, and becomes a kind of Promethean figure.
Nat Turner's rebellion struck a chord that reverberated throughout the South and the North, terrifying white Southerners and emboldening black and white abolitionists of the North.